Alright, so welcome back to these analysis videos. So today we'll be examining the INFP. And so, what is an INFP, first of all? Well, an INFP is an introverted, intuitive, feeling, perceiving type, meaning that they are energized by quiet time alone, they see patterns and possibilities, they prioritize people and emotions, and they prefer freedom and flexibility. Now, INFPs are known for being very idealistic, polite, reserved, warm, caring, independent, sensitive, loyal, and creative. But they can also be erratic, scatterbrained, forgetful, indecisive, impulsive, and wishy washy. Now, you may wonder why I talked about those adjectives that are more on the more negative connotation. Well, that's because today I will be examining some unhealthy INFPs in anime. So, it's funny. For the longest time, I actually thought that I was an INFP, not an INFJ, which is what I am since I did a test back in spring this year. But before I did the actual test, I was almost 100% sure that I was an INFP because in a lot of ways, INFPs and INFJs are similar. Um, it made sense for the INF part, but the P part and then all the cognitive functions, which I had no idea what cognitive functions were back then. But it's funny. So I have a lot of respect for INFPs because I for a while I identified as one for like half a year probably. So before I go into the characters themselves, I want to look at the cognitive functions of an INFP. So first of all, we have FI, which is their dominant cognitive function. Now, FI is focused on internal values and determining really the moral code or meaning of the environment that they're in. Now, NI DOMs are they put authenticity in very high self-esteem and or really high self-esteem, and they're really like impulsed by anything that's really like shallow, kind of fake or fabricated. Now this function can make them very also considerate of others and empathetic because with FI they can see where other people are coming from in terms of their motives. But that can also, like I said, mean that they want to exclude people that they don't think have good motives. And instead of FE, which looks externally at the environment and asks more of the question, how does the group feel? Instead, FI looks internally in themselves and asks, well, how do I feel about this? Then we have NE, which is extrovert intuition, which INFPs use this function to find really patterns, also patterns and like underlying principles as well as ideas. And NE flourishes when they're given in some interesting concept or idea to think about, and this because it's an extroverted function, it works as they engage in outside forces, and this is really like the outlet of the INFP, where they use this function to express themselves either verbally, creatively, or they can use this function when they write to write poems or stories, which I know a lot of INFPs like to do. Also, but this is their auxiliary function. Then we have the territory function that is called the SI, which is introverted sensing. Now, this gives them a sense of solidity in their beliefs, and this makes FI and any their like FI and any world very structured and detailed. Now, SI places really high value on like real world experiences and its impressions of them. And INFP store all the interesting experiences and information that they gather around them, like in their mind, and they uh, organize all of these experiences for a future possibility. Then, lastly, their inferior function, extrovert thinking (TE). This is very like logic oriented function, and this is probably the most competitive cognitive function. That I think that's why there's a trophy here. Anyways, so they use TE rarely. I would say they use this only when necessary. And what TE is basically this very logical function that tries to be efficient. They like try to critique and refine what's already in place to see what can be improved. They look for the most pragmatic and realistic ways to solve a problem, etc., etc. Anyways, let's examine um, some of these characters. Now, all these will be uh, unhealthy characters, um, but then I will make another video talking about some rather healthy INFPs. But for this one, I'll be talking about unhealthy ones. So first of all, we have Tomoko Kuroki from Wanamoto. Now, why she's an INFP? That's because of her, antics that that she does. They are really strongly connected to her first to her dominant and auxiliary cognitive functions, FI and NE. And FI is she uses FI because she wants to make some type of impact on the world, and she wants to, be noticed by her classmates and be, accepted and validated. Then she uses her auxiliary function to work around that idealistic mindset that she has. FE, she uses FE when she comes up with these ideas, like, for example, stepping on a bug in the classroom in order for people to think she's cool, and that actually happened, by the way. But she also exhibits a lot of SI, because her SI, is analyzing past events to see uh, how they work for a future possibility, and she uses this to make sense of the present. There's a lot of scenes where she, in both the anime and the manga, where she uh, looks at her life in middle school and compares it to her high school life, which is something that a lot of INFPs do. Next up, we have Nariko Sengoku from the Monogatari series. She's the primary example of an IP who is stuck in an FI-SI loop. Now, what I mean by an FI and SI loop means that she gets stuck in using her introverted functions. So, in the case of an INFP, their dominant FI and their territory SI, while neglecting their extrovert functions like NE, and T. So when an INFP gets into this loop, they become very self-critical, especially for their past mistakes. They have really like a tendency to glorify people, as well as like find themselves feeling very like alienated from others in their surroundings. Does this sound familiar? Well, it does, because in the case Monogatari, Nariko glorifies the hell out of Araragi, almost as this like perfect person. Uh, that's the way she, or that's both how she thinks of Aragi and how Aragi kind of interprets her. Anyway, she's constantly also very self-critical, and she's um, very people pleasing in the way she apologizes for everything and just goes along with what everyone else says without having her own opinion about anything. And this she continues with this type of mindset until season two, where she does, it's like revealed kind of that she does this because she seeks validation and states that she feels very isolated from her surroundings. Uh, Next up, we have Krona from Solier. Now, Krona is someone that was abused as a child. It's no, it's stated during, I think, the middle section of the series, or no, I think around episode 15, 16. So it's just a slight spoiler, but he he or she, uh, I have no idea what gender Krona is. That's never revealed. But he or she is clearly an introvert. Krona. I'm not gonna say he or she. Krona keeps to him or herself a lot. Um, Krona is a very sensitive person who is generally someone who's in their own head a lot of the times and doesn't want to talk to a lot of people and socialize. But um, this happens when an INFP's FI hasn't been nurtured properly in their childhood, which has led to many problems with Krona. Like, for example, um, he or she having self-esteem issues, lacking in assertiveness, and wanting to just isolate um, him or herself from the world. Now, when it comes to extrovert intuition, that cognitive function is also really undeveloped in Corona, because INFPs, they're really their best ideas and their best visions come from when they have a sense of inner peace and inspiration. And that's not the case at all for Corona, because she was not raised in a way that made this function nurtured. However, SI is clear, as in Krona blindly goes with what Medusa says or what she wants Krona to do. Um, but Krona is also, like all these characters, in a grip with their T, which means Krona is trying to help himself or herself in a way that's kind of um, pragmatic and realistic. Um, but because that's what he is, trying to find out what the most pragmatic and realistic way um, of his situation is. That's what Maka does. She tries to help him or her in a very like pragmatic way. Of like, okay, you need to do this to get through your problems. Uh, which is also a slight spoiler, but it's not a major spoiler, so I think I'm okay saying that. Anyways, uh, it's very clear that Krona has a TE, or that he or she is in a grip with Krona's TE, because he or she instead goes into his or her inner world, both actually in a metaphorical and in a metaphysical sense. All right, and lastly we have Shinji Ikari from Neon Genesis Evangelion. Now, Shinji is someone who is strongly entombed with his introverted feeling, FI. For example, with his FI, even though it wasn't developed in a healthy way, he had a really hard time seeing and understanding his father, and why his father did what he did. We abandoned him at a very early age during his upbringing. So Shinji has instead gotten stuck in his inner world in a metaphorical sense, where he's the one who has caused all of his problems, and He keeps his mantra of, "Oh, I am the one who has caused all of these problems," in a very neurotic way, which has just led to him hating and loathing himself. And this can be from small things to uh, huge things that weren't even his problems. Like, for example, uh, there was one time in the later episodes where he harmed Toji in a way which I won't go into because they're spoilers. But if you've seen Evangelion, you know what's happened, and that was Nerve's fault. But he uh, he thought that he was the person who had hurt him. Anyways, he uses his NE as a combination with his FI to try to get closer with other people, which is something that all idealists do, like INFPs, INFJs, ENFPs, and ENFJs. And all of the idealists struggle with this, the hedgehog's dilemma. Uh, but I won't explain that. But anyways, Shinji's third cognitive function, his territory function SI, manifests itself in how overtly he concerns himself with past experience with others. He reminisces about almost every moment he has with other characters, hoping and always looking for deeper meaning than there usually is. And also, he's in a grip with his tea, since in the series he's impulsive a lot of the times, especially in the fight scenes against the Angels, where he gets yelled at for not following the orders as well as Ray or Asuka does. And he doesn't follow them as well as them from Nerve. And he more or less does things more his own ways during a lot of the fight scenes. Um, Alright, so what characters do you guys think are unhealthy INFPs? Make sure to leave characters who you think are unhealthy INFPs in the comments below. And next video I'll be making is about INTJs in anime, and I'm really looking forward to making that one. So that will be released in about a week from now. Make sure to check out my previous video that was about INFJs in anime, and see you in the next one. Bye bye.